Plastic is practically all around us. Just look around you. Bottles of water, glasses, shoes, chairs, you name it. Everywhere that a human goes, plastic is sure to follow. Although plastic is everywhere, we tend to overlook our tendency to dispose of them so easily. This also means that it can be left behind in places it shouldn't be. Landfills have oceans of plastic in them, and it's hard to believe that even the smallest pieces contribute to this global dilemma. People are careless and decide to leave their trash around everywhere they go, not thinking about how the environment is affected by the plastic that they leave behind. In my speech today, I will provide details of some types that harm of the types of harm that plastic does to us and our environment. First, I will go over what microplastic is. Second, how plastics affect our wildlife, and finally, how recycling can reduce our plastic footprint on the earth. But before we start with the speech, I just want to show you a few examples of some regular, everyday packaging of plastic. And these things are very easily disposable, like this. Yeah, you just throw it, and look at that, it's gone, and easily disposable, and that's what people do, and they just do whatever with it. So let's start with microplastics. Microplastics are small pieces of plastic that are about smaller than a millimeter or 5 milli, smaller than a millimeter in length. And these microplastics, they are a form of pollution that goes into our ecosystems that they go through waterways basically. And these chemicals that build up or that create the plastics get into our ecosystems through waterways basically. And so these microplastics, they get into our marine wildlife and even our own bodies through the soil and like the food that we eat, the food that they eat, and it mostly affects the wildlife's organ and their digestive systems. So that's a problem because every year about 5 to 14 million tons of plastic flow into our oceans. And so plastics get into our bodies and affect our health, but it doesn't just affect, or it doesn't go into our bodies, but it also goes into the wildlife, the ocean dwellers, basically. And so plastic gets into our oceans every year, every day, and the Pacific Ocean alone has this large patch of plastic garbage, just debris, sitting in it, and it's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. This thing is 1.6 million square miles in size, and it has around 1.8 trillion pieces of trash. 1.8 trillion, that's insane. And that's roughly around 100,000 tons of trash. And what this huge patch does is it just sits there. It literally just sits there in the ocean and does nothing because plastic is so hard to decompose. And plus, it's water, it can't really decompose at all. So, what happens is the marine wildlife, like turtles, they end up mistaking these plastic as food and they'll eat it, and it messes up their whole organs and all that. And it's studied that more than half of the world's sea turtles have eaten debris. More than half, and that's insane to think. What else is birds on the Midway Island, an island in the Pacific Ocean, which is basically where the Pacific garbage patch is. All these birds you see on there have eaten debris. They've eaten plastic, and it's basically affecting them. And these birds, they just die because of they're just dying because of plastic. And specialists have even opened up individual birds who have the carcasses of birds, and you just see plastic filled to the brim in their stomach. And it's hard to believe that it's the work of humans that have done this, basically. So plastic is a huge problem now in our day and age. So there's still many things that we can do to stop it though. Like we can all just start by recycling. Recycling is the number one step, easiest thing we can do, and it's gonna it's gonna reduce the number of plastic that we're gonna be putting into the oceans and into our landfills and everything. And but not only is it gonna take up less space, but it's also going to save our wildlife because our wildlife is going to die and they're going to become extinct one day. In 2050, by the year 2050, we're going to have more plastic in our oceans than animals in our ocean, the creatures in our oceans. And so without our contribution to recycling plastic and everything, it's going our health, our ecosystems, our wildlife are still going to be affected today. So the speech has shown you just a few things how plastic affects our ecosystems and everything. But this also means our ecosystem and habitats are littered with plastics basically. It's still happening today. If we don't do something quick about it, our foods, our drinks, our wildlife are going to be affected by our microplastics, our plastics that we create. And as people who live on this earth today, we should be taking care of the place that we are living on, not killing it. Thank you.